Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the opening round of PCA Sim Racing for the 2021 season. This is round one of the 2021 PCA Sim Racing Zone Group Challenge, live from the virtual Watkins Glen International, Watkins Glen, New York. This is also the very first event of the 2021 season for PCA Sim Racing, presented by Hagerty. It's time for action from the club class, which is brought to you by Michelin this evening. Michelin, a better way forward. James Black, the voice of Podium Esports, here alongside Taylor Burris, Rachel Whiteford, and our producer Ryan Bauer. And I think the biggest question is, are we going to see a battle dead on at the front this time, TV? Because in our first two races, the leader's been able to get away, and the good battles have happened usually anywhere from about 3rd to 10th. Does that change in this club class race?
It might possibly so. We're starting to get up into the more higher-ranked drivers of the PCA. I mean, this class here, we see a couple of fan favorites here. And Icing Ring, we also see Michael McKinney, Michael Patterson, Jeremy Mazzariello, James Su, Jonathan Waltman, Marco Harris, and Ian Simmons. So a great group of drivers here who are going to come out here and hopefully put on a good show here for these next 30 minutes.
A lot of action to be had over the course of the next 30 minutes and change or so as we get set to rock and roll and have some fun in this club class race, which is brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward. Familiar names in this that we've seen: Taylor Burris, Ed Eisenring, Jean-Paul Leno, Jeremy Mazzariello, Klaus Nielsen, Julian Velez, Bruce Robinson, James Su, Patrick Gill, Ian Simon, Jonathan Waltman, Andrew Elson, Dave Stewart, Ken Eskridge, Mark Harris. All drivers who have experience in this class before, but with a new twist here. We're not necessarily counting individual driver points. This is more about the zone at the end of the day in this challenge. We're just trying to see which three drivers will join some of the names that you'll see competing in April for the Zone Group Challenge Championship. And in the club class, it'll be James Su, Mark Harris, Robert LaCroix, Mazzariello, Road Heaver, Jeff Smith, Kevin Douglas, Tamer Elbaga, Gary Rice, Sean Murphy, Ken Eskridge, Andrew Elsom, Argunga Ralph, Keith Morgan hanging out and having some fun in that sport class. Jean-Paul Leno, Michael Patterson, Filippo Berti, Ed Eisenring, Randall Ayers, Brady McMacken, Jonathan Waltman, Chris Siborowski, Brian Granger, and Adnan Mardini, along with Robert Cottle, Matthew Siddle, Dante Tornello, Jose Santiago, Chris Duffy, Michael Masters, Patrick Gill. I believe that might actually be everybody that will be going to the championship directly. We'll add 3 more names to that at the end of the month, and then we'll find out who will try and take the crown amongst the zones to be the fastest zone of them all, TV.
And we're certainly going to see who is able to come out on top of that. But right now, as we look at qualifying, it's going to be Matthew Siddall, who's currently holds the top time right now with a 140.638. He was also fastest in practice as well, being one of the only few drivers to break, actually the only driver to break into the 140 bracket here at Watkins Glen. So going to be a tough battle to see if anyone can have anything for Matthew, but I'm pretty sure to see if someone like Julian Velez, Michael Masters, or Jean-Paul Leno can have anything to say.
It will be wild. It will be crazy. We'll see how it goes when they get to racing, but just about a minute left here. And Rachel, beginning to build your book of PCA Sim Racing experience through 2 races, are there any particular trends that you've noticed that you think are worth highlighting at this stage?
What we see so far is generally a trend towards safety over some more risky moves we've seen for some of these drivers. Of course, as we go up, we see the speed bracket here amongst these guys. We're likely to see more of that coming along. The 2 lower classes really in this one, and I hate to say lower because there's some fantastic drivers in all of them, have been more separated by speed. That has been the biggest factor I think we've seen so far in the races, the 2 we've had. Whereas in Club and Pro, I'm expecting to see drivers separated by how they can race around each other. And that is going to be a bigger telling factor. We saw it starting to creep in the last race, in Sport of course. But now I think we're definitely going to see that in much more vivid colour.
Living color, as it were, as we now turn to the starting grid to tell you where your favorite driver starts in this club class race, which is brought to you by Michelin. Matthew Siddle with a 146.38 takes pole over Al Burke. It's Ed Eisenring in third on the grid. Michael McKinney starts fourth. Jean-Paul Lano starts in fifth. Michael Patterson rolls off from P6. Seventh on the grid is Jeremy Manzariello. Klaus Nielsen and Julian Velez, two drivers trying to race their way in to the Zone Group Challenge Championship, starting 8th and 9th. 10th on the grid, Jonathan Waltman.
In the 11th position will be Michael Masters, followed by James Sue in 12th. Bruce Robinson starts 13th, followed by Patrick Gill in 14th. Ian Simmons will be starting in the 15th position, followed by Matthew Scott in 16th. Andrew Elsom in 17th, followed by Jose Santiago 18th. Dave Stewart 19th. 20th is Ken Estridge, and rounding out your top 21, Marco Harris.
Coming in. Oh, that is everybody. I was about to start the next 20. Whoops.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could just repeat everyone if you wanted to.
I'll just imagine them. I'll pretend it's another 21, another 10 drivers if you like.
Stack it to 30 and 40, and we'll talk about all the track facts in the interim. This, of course, Watkins Glen International. It's the boot format, the one that all of us sports car fans or sporty car fans around the world, if you pay attention to certain corners of Twitter, would know. But it's a 3.40 mile, 5.43 kilometer circuit with 11 turns that opened in 1956. Again, in sim, it is April 5th, 2021, around 9:30 a.m. local time, and temps. Guess what, Taylor Burr is pretty much dead on with what they've been. 67 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, about 72 degrees Fahrenheit track temp instead of the one that we've seen in the first two races. Winds to the north at 2 miles an hour, humidity of 28%. We're racing for 30 minutes plus 1 lap, and we'll see who moves one step closer to the Zone Group Challenge Championship, and or which drivers take advantage of the practice sessions, which is essentially what these are for if any one of the potentially 40 plus drivers who have locked themselves into the show for their respective class. You know, you've got some time to get used to racing against these drivers and get warmed up, especially for Series 6, because Series 6, you're going to use this same Porsche 911 RSR in competition.
Certainly so, and that's going to be one of the things, is making sure that you take your time and practice to make sure that you get the best opportunity to put on a good show for your zone later on this year. So we'll have to keep an eye and see what will happen to these drivers.
Lots to be ready for. Or rather, actually, I'll take that back. My brain totally just shifted into another gear, and we'll get it back into gear because it's actually the 911 GT3 Cup car that will feature in Series 6. So apologies there, but a fun one to go back to, Rachel White. For the first time we've gone back to that car since Series 3 back in 2019. So going Cup car racing should be fun. And oh, by the way, how cool is it to see the 992 Cup car that Porsche announced back at the end of last year? Hood scoops and all, you wouldn't necessarily think it, but I almost like the sort of extra aggression that the aesthetic ramps up on the new generation of 911 GT3 Cup car that will be competing in Porsche Cups all around the globe in 2021.
No, absolutely. It almost used to come with, you know, the big hair of the 80s and, you know, large hood scoops and aggressive styling. It's such an 80s vibe that is really coming back in the, I guess, I wanted to say the roaring 20s, but we've not really started off this decade in the best way possible. So let's have some fun with it. Let's take things to interesting places. And the new car looks amazing.
It does look amazing. Looks lots of fun. And I will be the first to say I do hope that at some point down the line we do get it in iRacing. And, I would imagine that the folks in Stuttgart and Zuffenhausen would be inclined, given how big the Porsche Taycan Esports Super Cup is, that uses the 911 GT3 Cup car now. That's one of the biggest series in all of iRacing and the premier road racing competition in the sim. So I would think plenty of incentive, Taylor, to get a new car and a new breed of 911 GT3 Cup car in relatively short order. And I consider me hopeful that we'll see it soon.
Well, let's be honest, James. Anything with Porsche should definitely be on the iRacing service, whether it be, of course, like you said, the new 911 GT3 Cup car. What about also the GT2? That's kind of resembles the famous Moby Dick race car from the car back in the 80s. That is a beast of a machine as well. So you have a wide variety of different Porsches that pretty much on iRacing would be astounding to drive on.
He speaks the facts, to say the words. Makes a lot of sense. but we're glad you're with us here. Whether or not you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or Twitter, get ready for all the action here with PCA Sim Racing's Club Class, presented by Michelin, a better way forward. Leave it to Matthew Siddle, who takes off and leads us to the green for our third race of 4 this evening. He jumps out in front of Albert, who gets on the brakes pretty quickly. I thought he almost might run over Siddle incidentally, but everybody getting through turn 1 pretty nicely. The trick, though, is getting the funnel down up to the S's. That's always really hard to do, Rachel.
Yeah, that's absolutely the trickiest part, because you've got to go from a really wide part of the track there to a really narrow part, as they're all going to filter up here, and got a bit of congestion actually forming in your mid-pack here around Velez and Nielsen, and the action is absolutely on here. Nielsen ahead, looking for a move around Mazzarello as they head into the bus stop this time by, and the action just pepping up here as we head down towards Carousel. These guys have not separated like the other classes. This is a lot closer here, James, and they're really starting to look for opportunities early while the cars are close.
Closer and closer and closer and closer they get. That's what this comes down to, I think, end of the day, which is going to be very, very wild, I would say. So we will see how it goes with this race as Siddle and Burke and Isering and McKinney continuing to work their way around this racetrack and chase down that number 55, the bright yellow machine that leads this group. But I think this bodes very well. If this is the way they're racing on that one, we should have a lot of battles that we'll be able to go through over the course of the race, Taylor.
Certainly so, and this is probably going to be where we'll see a lot of the competition come at its very best. Everyone seeing as you're on board with Al Burke. Look at him. The focus is definitely there. He's trying to see if he can keep up with Matthew Siddle as they come out of the final corner here to start lap number 1. And as they come across the line right now, it's still about 0.6 of a second. This is probably one of the closest battles that we've had for the race lead, probably since the challenge class before we saw some issues happen for our second place driver later on the going. But now we're on board with Jeremy Mazzariello from the North Country region. Zone 1 guaranteed a spot in the championship later on, so we'll see what he can do as he climbs the S's.
Michael Patterson from the Longhorn region of the PCA down in Texas, riding in P6 here, but a good group to work with. You've got Klaus Nielsen looking ahead. He's going to clear, Mazzariello is going to clear Nielsen and take over 7th, and then try and go after Patterson in 6th. Lano is in good shape, and then, really quickly jumping out to some gaps in the top 5. So we'll keep our eye on this little group of Mazzariello, Nielsen, Velez, Waltman, Sue, even Michael Masters towards the back of it. Closest battle early on in this race. Rachel.
Yeah, it certainly is, and they're definitely going for this one early on in the going here today. But there's a good grouping here in this whole mid-pack we can't really dismiss as being potential battles already forming. There's been very little separation so far. They're all really holding on to each other. There's a pack a little bit further back, starting perhaps around, looks like Patrick Gill, running currently in 13th place, but the whole field is very, very close here. Notably as well, Velez in there at the moment, currently being looked at by Waltman, who is really trying to find that opening. He looks to the inside there as they're running down towards the penultimate corner. Doesn't find that opening. He's going to stay in line here. Possibly look for something on the start-finish line. Get a good run out this final corner. Of course, we saw it in the last race. Someone got a little bit wide there, got some grass, which spun them out there. Very easy to do that in that corner and run wide when we catch the outside wall there. As here we go, looking for Waltman to make a move here on Velez. Looks at the inside. He's setting himself up, saying, I'm going to brake here a little bit later than you are, but he holds it back. Waiting for opportunity, not the right time to pass, wants to stay with the cars in front.
Can you make the move? Yes. Should you make the move? It's not necessarily always that kind of case, Taylor Burris. And in Waltman's case, this is now about setting this up with the big run down the back straightaway to try and get to the inside, or I guess in this case, the outside towards the inner loop.
Certainly so, as we see what will happen as we watch Jonathan Waltman try to work his way through the field right now. He's having a little tough time as he had to get passed by Julian Velez. James Sue right now in hot pursuit of them as they come through the carousel. Also, Michael Masters in that battle right there for that 10th position. You see Sue take a peek to the outside. He's going to try to send it on the top side of the corner as they enter into the boot. Ducks back in line as they climb up towards the top of the hill, where we will see the toe of the boot begin as they hug the inside lane. One car ahead of them gets a little bit wide as you're on board with Jonathan Waltman coming out of there. The Santa Barbara region's driver from Zone 8 leading this three-car train as they head towards the heel of the boot.
Really good racing amongst this group as Siddle and Burke are out there by a second, but we'll keep our eyes on that battle. We'll keep our eyes on Patterson, Nielsen, Velez, Jean-Paul Leno with trouble and dropping through the field. He's got some damage, so an incident for Leno that we'll need to keep our eyes on, but he'll have to try and regroup. But big incident here, and Leno, just looking back at the replay very briefly on my screen, overdrove the exit of the boot and sent himself down to the fence. The classic off-camera corner issue that, Rachel, you talked about earlier, where it's very easy to apply too much pressure to the throttle pedal and get yourself turned around trying to get over back to the main part of the racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely is. Really tough spot there. As I'm just looking right now at Patterson, he's been chased down by Nielsen at the moment. This is looking like a imminent opportunity for these guys here on the track, as you can see them. And here he goes. Patterson makes that move, and he just lets him through. Oh, big close up there from behind. I think that was Velez coming in for an opportunity here. He just dove that car in. Velez is on behind. That'll be Waltman, who's really trying to go somewhere in this race today. Looks like Velez really close to the back bumper of Waltman's machine there as they head down into the arch there of the boot. And this whole pack here is kind of making me a little bit nervous, James. They're all over each other.
So Patterson with a little bit of a gap, and then Waltman and Velez and Sue right now in particular, all over each other. And what a crossover there. Sue trying to set this up so he could get down to the inside and potentially get Julien Velez going into turn 8, but Velez covers, keeps Sue at bay, and that's dragging Michael Masters into this, dragging Patrick Gill into this, making them all a little bit more apprehensive because you lose that breathing room and that space to make mistakes at the end of the day.
You certainly can, and that's why these mistakes you cannot be making here. Otherwise, you will lose time, you will lose positions, and possibly a chance of coming out with a strong finish or win here at Watkins Glen as we watch our top two come through the 90 right now. Al Burke from the Upper Canada region trying to close in on Matthew Siddell as they come up through the S's. Great drive for both of them as they're pulling away by about 2-3 seconds over third place at Icing Ring.
This is looking up at Michael Masters. He's at the very back end of this group, and there are two battles we're going to keep track of as they come through the S's towards the backstretch. It's Patterson v. Waltman for 8th, and then you've got Velez, Sue, and Masters trying to figure out who wants 9th, as looks like Waltman's going to get to the inside there. You see it on the left side of your screen. He's going to complete the pass on Patterson, so Waltman now actually up to 7th, and Velez maintaining the 9th spot ahead of Sue and Masters, and even Patrick Gill, who's just on the edge of the frame.
Yeah, he's going for it here, trying to find an opportunity for them at the moment. And on board with Masters here, really showing what to do with this thing, but he's trying to find an opportunity to get through this whole grouping of cars. He's sitting right at the back, so it's a perfect view of the whole train ahead of them. Looking back from Velez there, as we come round the toe here of the boot section. These guys are absolutely under an umbrella. This whole grouping from, I'd say, Waltman backwards is just all over each other. And they're really putting on a show with this one. This is going to be one of my biggest fights of the race.
Keeping an eye here to see what kind of gap Waltman can try and induce on this group with Patterson, with Velez, with Sue and company. Patterson had to check up. He crossed lanes with Waltman there and crossed apexes, and that forced Patterson to get on the brakes hard and brings him right up to the front bumper of Julien Velez, who's looking for a way to get around but just can't quite find it. Velez did not get a good exit out of the final corner, and that's going to allow James Sue to have an opportunity to make this pass down into 1, but he's going to get on the brakes early and think better of it, and instead try and charge up, or at least tried to get through the middle of the corner a little bit better to find room around Velez to make the pass. But again, crossing apexes, an issue that you see here Watkins Glen on a few spots at the racetrack, but in particular exit of the bus, or exit of the boot rather, and then exiting turn 1. Those two places in particular, I feel like we've seen more than a few people have to check up just because they don't want to run into somebody else.
That certainly is the case here, James, as we saw. I mean, we saw that early on in the last race where drivers had to check up and cause a serious incident. But here we've seen drivers trying to make sure that they give each other room, show the respect in order to have these great battles that we see as you're on board with Marco Harris from the Connecticut Valley region. Of course, he's guaranteed a spot into the championship later on this year. And for zone number 1, he's trying to chase down Santa Barbara Region's Matthew Scott in that number 35 right now, who's from zone 8, looking to see if he can clinch his spot later on.
Riding on board with Ian Simon, he is in the 17th position and trying to figure out whether or not we need to be following Matt Scott or Mark Harris to try and get a position. But Simon, with plenty of experience and moving up in the ranks very quickly into the club class. Feels like not too long ago he was a challenge class driver, Taylor Burris, but you know, you perform, you do well, you win races, and all of a sudden here you are competing against stronger competition. PCA Sim Racing Steering Committee doing a nice job of recognizing talent and moving them up the ranks appropriately to get them better fights against drivers end of the day.
Certainly so, and these drivers here are some of the top up-and-coming future stars of our pro class in the PCA Sim Racing Series, and they definitely have the talent, especially drivers such as Al Burke, Ed Isingring, Michael McKinney, and now also Matthew Siddall, who's all been having a great performance right there as we watch on the rest of this battle here between James Sue, Michael Patterson, Jonathan Waltman, as well as Marco Harris, who's a little bit further back, but still great battles as we see. Almost going to take it 3 wide right here for this battle. Are they going to make it stick? Still 2 wide. Marco Harris in car number 8, he's going to slide on through to get past Matthew Scott, as a great pass right there as they now lead in through the carousel.
Also, note that's Mark O. Harris, not Marco Harris. Something that I think can get lost in translation there, but O is actually his middle initial. So Mark Harris, if we were using the system for everybody else, but some drivers in iRacing have their middle initials included in their names. So that's where that comes from. Anybody who's watched our Oval Series broadcast and podium will probably know about folks like Spencer E. Burns, amongst many of the drivers that fall into the camp, and it happened to the roadside as well. Here's Dave Stewart from the Upper Canada region, running in the 19th position and just working his way around with Andrew Elsa, one of the Peach Staters, who's just sort of hanging there. And maybe we have a fun little battle between these two at the back. They work their way through the exit of the bus stop within, 1/10 of a second of one another. Meanwhile, the group with Nielsen, Waltman, Patterson and company has separated. No question. They found some breathing room and found a little bit of space to race. So this now, I think, Rachel, for those drivers becomes more of a lap time game than it does a proper on-track battle game.
It is. It's about finding that, but as we're looking right now, I'm seeing a pass between Velez and I believe that's maybe Patterson. We're running side by side up the S's there, which is a dangerous game for them to play. That was actually Masters, I believe, there, which has brought James Sue into the mix here. And we now have another threesome behind the 2 ahead of them. 4, in fact, as if you bring in Patrick Gill there to that group. As, again, picking a bad spot to make a pass. It slows you down and brings everyone up to join you. And the exact same thing has happened here. We've seen them come really, really close here and get involved in how this race will unfold for this whole section of the track. So this is 8th down to about 12th here. And it could be anybody now. That one attempted pass, it slowed them right down, brought groups into this mix.
Yeah, you miss it in one of the weird spots on the racetrack, and you really do end up costing yourself 2, 3, maybe 4/10 of a second in a particular corner. As it's Matthew Siddall in control, Al Burke in second, Ed Isingring third, and those 3 all just very much running their own races. Not much to say as far as a battle is concerned there, but Waltman and Patterson are back at it again a little bit further back. How about the 7 car in P7 trying to hang on to that spot after he got it from Patterson a few laps ago, Taylor?
Certainly so, as we'll keep an eye and seeing if he's able to work his way through. Of course, Michael Patterson and Jonathan Waltman having a great job of working their way through. This is the battle for 7th and 8th position, and I gotta say, Michael Patterson in his race car has probably one of the best looking paint schemes out there. I love that purple with the chrome on the top of that car as he works his way up through the S's. Great drive for him right now, currently sitting in that 8th spot.
One of the very few, I think, chromed out liveries in this field, but certainly impressive across the board for Michael Patterson as we now go on board with another Michael. That's Michael Masters that you see on your screens. He's trying to fight his way around Julian Velez, and it looks like Masters, I think, may have, well, completely overshot the bus stop and then gets hit a little bit of contact further back with another car. So Masters is going to fall out of the top 10 quickly, and I'm not sure who it was that caught Masters when he rejoined the racetrack coming through the middle of the bus stop. I believe answer to that question is going to be Jose Santiago. It's the one who got a piece of that machine.
Yeah, certainly trying for something here, and we've seen significant separation. Well, Michael Masters on pit road after that run through. Back into that car, heavily damaged, so he's not in a particularly good place right now, as the front Suddle is doing what he can here to push this one. Gap of 33 seconds here. Burke is about 5 seconds clear of Eisenring. So this front of the group here, the top 3 podium finishers right now, huge gaps right now, other than third place, where Michael McKinney might actually have a chance to take this third place podium spot.
Got it down to a second on Ed Eisenring, and he's got speed too. He was a full second faster than Eisenring the last time by, and Eisenring was 2 seconds slower. But as it stands, time to go to our midway race break for the third time this evening, and in the club class that is brought to you by our friends at Michelin, the official tire of IMSA. Michelin is continuing their long-standing tradition of dedication to motorsports through sports car racing, but they also manufacture and sell tires for every type of vehicle, including airplanes, automobiles, bicycles, earth movers, farm equipment, heavy-duty trucks, and motorcycles. Michelin also offers a whole range of innovative services and solutions that help make mobility safer, more efficient, and more environmentally friendly. Find out more about Michelin at www.michelinman.com. Michelin, a better way forward. Matthew Siddle, the 55 machine, has done it from the top. Been the leader the whole way through out of the St. Louis region, and one of the drivers who you'll see in next month's Zone Group Challenge Championship. He's P1 at the moment. P2 to the 169 of Al Burke, running out of Ontario in the Upper Canada region and having a great night. He's one of the drivers that needs to qualify his way in still the April Zone Group Challenge Championship. Third man in this race, at least for now, Ed Eisenring out of the Pacific Northwest region, the Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia metro areas, all represented in Washington State. But that could be up for grabs in a little bit because Michael McKinney yet again faster than Eisenring by about 2/10 that last time by from the Cimarron region of the PCA. Fifth place in this race, currently belonging to Jeremy Mazzariella out of the North Country region in New Hampshire. He'll be racing next month too. Ross Nielsen is just behind Mazzariello. The black and green versus the green car may be ahead of Mazzariello if he gets a good run. He's out of the Lone Star region and zone number 5. We know the Texans have pace, and more pace as Nielsen jumps into the top 5. Mazzariello goes back to 6th. 7th is Jonathan Waltman out of the Santa Barbara region of California. The SoCal man running out of zone 8, currently holding P7 ahead of Michael Patterson, who carries the Longhorn region, and another one of our zone 5 drivers in the 8th spot at this time, about half a second back of Walton's number 7. 9th in this race belongs to the 33 of Julian Velez, part of the northern New Jersey region of the PCA, also home to our good friend Michael Polisak. And then 10th in this race so far, James Sue, the 14 car. He runs in the very, very final spot of the top 10 from the Upper Canada region of the PCA. Taylor.
In 11th position in the 111 car is Patrick Gill from the Central Wisconsin region. He's guaranteed a spot for his zone number 13, running in the 11th spot as he is doing a great job trying to hold that position. Got to go another 3.3 seconds back to Jose Santiago from the Puerto Rico region. He's having a great run in 12th position in car number 12. He's guaranteed a spot from zone 12. So all the 12s right there. So that's probably what we call a triple crown of 12s here for Jose Santiago. In 13th position, we have car 386, Bruce Robinson in the Northern Ohio region. He's guaranteed a spot with his zone championship run in zone 4. currently right now with a time of a 142.734. So absolutely having a great performance out there. One of the fastest cars inside the top 15. In 14th, Ian Simon in Zone 5 from the Mardi Gras region guaranteed his spot for his Zone Championship run in that Q Cup. Lime green, I would say, in white and black Porsche. Beautiful design as well as he's out there in 14th. 15th position, car 35 from Santa Barbara region is Matthew Scott, looking to see if he can have a chance to be one of the drivers to represent zone number 8 as he works his way through the bus stop chicane, though he has a little bit of work to do to work his way up through the field. 17th position, actually 16th position, is Mark O. Harris from the Connecticut Valley region. He's guaranteed a spot for his Zone 1 championship run as he is trying to hunt down Matthew Scott for that 15th spot. 17th position is Andrew Elsom from the Peach State region, probably one of the most popular regions in all of PCA sim racing out of the Georgia area. Zone 3 is he's already clinched his chance to have a chance to battle for a zone championship. In the 18th position, Dave Stewart from the Upper Canada region, looking to see if he can find his way to be one of the few drivers to represent Zone 1 for the Zone Championship later on next month. And then in 19th, Ken Eskridge from the Heart of Dixie region. He's guaranteed a spot for his Zone 3 championship run for the sports, or for the club class here. And rounding out your top 20, John Paul Leno from the Mardi Gras region. So 2 Mardi Gras regions drivers, of course, here. He's clinched his spot for Zone 5 earlier on. So he's doing a great job with some damage as he's trying to move on. Michael Masters is out of the race in 21st.
And that concludes tonight's midway race report for the club class of PCA Sim Racing, which is brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward. Matthew Siddle still in control with about 8 minutes and change left in this race. Best battle on track. The James Sue and Patrick Gill in 10th and 11th. These two separated by 0.2 of a second, and Julian Velez is up there as well. But this has been a recurring theme throughout this race, Rachel, that these, at least 2 of these 3, maybe not all 3 of these at the same time, but 2 of these 3 have been fighting each other within 2 or 3 car lengths just about all night long.
It absolutely is, and we've had some fantastic runs with these guys, and we've seen them at it the entire time. A good example here, of course, would be we've got Nielsen and Marinello, Waltman and Peterson there. We have Velez, Stewart, Gill, who've been together for a few laps now. And we've had these same nests, like you mentioned, and who've just been pushing it together. We've found these kind of speed groups compared to the last round, where we've seen guys who are fighting over position here now more than just about speed, but about what they can gain on the track by being a better driver.
And who they can try and jump ahead of if they nail this down correctly. So all eyes here on Velez and Sue, and then we'll keep a wandering eye on Nielsen and Mazzariello as well. Everybody else at least a second or 2 away from one another, save for Jose Santiago, Bruce Robinson, and Ian Simon having a good battle a little bit further back. So those are the battle packs that we're going to focus on in these final few minutes. We'll take a look out the front windshield of Ian Simon out of the Mardi Gras region, see if we can run down Bruce Robinson or Jose Santiago.
Watching this battle between Bruce Robinson and Jose Santiago, and then don't forget Ian Simon as well as they work their way. Ooh, you see Bruce Robinson, he's going to take a peek to the inside of Santiago, completes the pass, hits the curbs just right in order to make it stick, and just starts to pull a gap over Santiago. Great pass by Robinson as you're riding on board with car 87, Ian Simon, as well as they come through the carousel heading into the booth.
Big moves there from Simon to try and change apex, and you see a great visual example there of the multitude of lines you can take in turn 8, Rachel. That one of the corners that stands out to me as arguably the trickiest on this racetrack, not only because of that, but because of the downhill braking and the lack of banking support you have. It's a nice little cocktail of challenges that even though that corner isn't necessarily the most seeming of places on this racetrack, as we see Jose Santiago go wide and Ian Simon tries to take over the spot and will successfully do so on the outside over there, interestingly enough. But as we're saying about turn 8, not necessarily the most obvious of tricky spots. It's not at turn 1. It's not the entrance to the inner loop. but offers more than its fair share of challenges when you get down to it.
Yeah, absolutely does. And the thing about turn 8 that you've got to factor in here is not only is it off camber, which is not great to start with, but it's off camber over a crest. So what you're dealing with suddenly is a car that's light because it's cresting and you're turning at the same time and it's off camber. So you've not got the grip of a camber to support you. The car's light, so now your car wants to slide out. So you have to really control that drive through there. You can't take a regular line. You've got to be a bit more managed in how you do it, because otherwise you'll find your car looping out. Especially when you're dealing with cars that are mid-engined or rear-engined, it becomes an even trickier proposition. In general, it's a rear-wheel drive issue. In fact, overall, we see it in the NASCAR cars when they run the boot. If they run the boot, I'm saying in iRacing terms. You see it in open-wheel cars specifically as well. It becomes a major problem there just by how that corner lifts the car up and loosens it out, meaning that the car naturally wants to go to the outside, and it will do so back first.
Science today with Rachel Whiteford explaining the technical nuances of these Porsche 911 orange cars. Matthew Siddle still well in control of this. Klaus Nielsen's managed to stretch Jeremy Mazzariello just a bit. That's now up to nearly a second from the half second that it was a few laps ago. Same, I think we can say for Valescu and Gill, who are now at least a half a second away from each other. It's really just down to Bruce Robinson and Ian Simon, I think, for a final few good battles of this race as we approach the final 5 minutes of our third race of the evening, Taylor.
And we are definitely going to see a great battle between Robinson and Simon as well as they work their way down the front straightaway. Three and three quarters of a minute left to go here as they work their way through the 90, now making the climb up the S's. Simon trying everything that he can to gain that little extra ground that he needs in order to see if he can make a pass down the back straightaway. Gets a great run up through the S's, gets about 2 car lengths, now 1 car length as they come out of the S's. And here comes the big pull from the draft. He's going to try to take a peek to the inside. Down the back straightaway, heading into the bus stop chicane, will complete the pass and move his way up into that 12th position. Has a little bit of work, though, to try and catch up to Patrick Gill about 4 seconds up the road.
It's a good one from Ian Simon, who spun early on in this race, went back to as far back as, I believe, 18th, and has passed 6 cars to get up to P12. The finish might not be what he wanted coming into this when we get the checkered flag in a few moments, Rachel, but I think given the way the race has panned out for Ian Simon, he'd take a 12th place if you gave it to him at this point.
Yeah, I think he will. This is right now exactly what he'd like to gain from this. He's up 2 spots, which is good for points, but it's been a tough race for him, and I think he'll take what he can get.
So Simon now well clear of this group here. He's got about 4 seconds to go. Chase down Patrick Gill. Meanwhile, Julian Velez-James, who's still in their tight battle, and Matthew Scott trying to run down Marco Harris now. Mazzariello and Nielsen also battling each other lightly too.
Gotta say, Matthew Scott trying to make sure he gets a recovery run, trying to catch up to Marco Harris as they come out through the final corner down the front straightaway here. In that 16th spot, has a good battle with Harris as they head into the 90. Let's see if he can make a pass on the inside. He looks, but isn't quite close enough to make it work for him as they both go a little wide out of the 90. That caused a little bobble for both drivers to get themselves set up to climb up through the S's, trying to hook that inside line to get a little bit of a draft from Harris in front of him as they work down the back straightaway here. He's just not close enough to make anything work for him right now.
Isn't quite clicking. That's the problem. He's trying to get a good run off of Harris and off of Jose Santiago, but it's just not there for Matthew Scott at this moment as we carry on to the final minute and a half. And so take a look at this. Matthew Siddle was going to get the white flag this time by. He works his way out of turn 10. So one more lap for your race leader, and we will be done and dusted in pretty good shape as Siddle comes across the line to take the white flag at this time.
Gotta say, it's a great battle that we see with Matthew Siddle, who has just absolutely put a clinic on the field. Al Burke has tried to see if he can make ground. He was close in the beginning, but to no avail, could not pull it off as we're on board with Klaus Nielsen from the Lone Star region trying to see if he can catch back up to Jeremy Mazariello to get a top 5 finish. So North Country versus Lone Star, these two will battle it out for their respective zone, with Jonathan Waltman not too far behind either. So we have a 3-car battle for the 5th spot.
Mazariello will get drawn back into this if he makes some sort of mistake, but this is more Nielsen versus Waltman for 6th and 7th at the end of it all, as Siddle and Burke have cleaned house on this one. They're clear of Ed Eisenring in 3rd by a solid 12.3-ish seconds, shall we call it now, as Mazariello continues to bunch it up.
Yeah, so he does. He's doing what he can with this, but right now Mazariello is just holding the last things he can here to try and keep this car in position. Because Nielsen and Waltman very interested in this spot, and they really want to get those points.
And for Matthew Siddle to complete these final few corners is Siddle in the 55 machine, another one of our start to finish winners that has done a brilliant job throughout this race to pace this field. Give it to the man out of Gateway Land, Matthew Siddle, P1 at Watkins Glen in the club class, presented by Michigan, as Klaus Nielsen goes sideways and just overdrove it. He was trying to get that spot on Mazariello and just overdrove turn 8, so he'll lose the spot to Waltman to what could have potentially been 5th, will end up most likely being 7th, and yeah, just locked up the fronts, I think, Taylor Burris on corner entry and snapped the rear end around.
Certainly looks like that way as we see the rest of the field come up through the field for unfortunately for Klaus Nielsen. He's going to try and see if he can get a top 10 finish at the very least, as he was able to come across the line in 7th. So great effort and recovery, even though he was so close for a top 5 run though.
Was tight, was close, was tricky as we wait for the final few cars to finish off this race and knock out all the action. Looks like Dave Stewart is wrapped it up. Andrew Elsom is in good shape. We're waiting on Bruce Robinson, Jean-Paul Leno, and Ken Eskridge, the final 3 drivers who will complete this race. But also impressively, everybody on the lead lap, Rachel.
Yeah, certainly are impressive, of course, from them, and a great run from this whole group. Some great speed we've seen in this one, of course, and the qualifying times have been pretty fantastic.
And there goes Eskridge across the line, which means we can now go through your full field rundown, tell you where your favorite driver finished. Siddle wins over Al Burke, who picks up max points for the drivers trying to race their way in next month. Finishes 3.3 seconds back of your race winner, does Burke. Eisenring completes the podium. McKinney and Mazariello complete the top 5. It was Jonathan Waltman in 6th, Klaus Nielsen in 7th, 8th went to Michael Patterson, Julia Velez was 9th, and 10th Taylor Burris belonged to James Sue.
11th is Patrick Gill, followed by Ian Simon will come home 12th. Marco Harris will come home in 13th, followed by Matthew Scott 14th. Jose Santiago 15th, Dave Stewart 16th, Andrew Elsom 17th, 18th John Paul Leno. Ken Eskridge will come home 20th, and the last car on who will come home in 21st, Michael Masters.
That completes your full field rundown for this club class presented by Michelin. We now speak to Matthew Siddle, your race winner, and it seemed like this place just came so second nature to you because there never really was a huge challenge at all in this race that you had to deal with. So where did the pace come from? Is it just a place that sits well with your driving style, or were you able to get practice in to really nail down your lap times here?
A lot of practice. We got a good team going called Matrix Motorsport, and we've all been helping each other out. Got some pros in the team, and it's been great. But yeah, a lot of practice there, a few scrappy laps, but held it together. And a great challenge from Al from behind. He kept me honest.
Did keep you honest there. You two pretty close on the lap times and didn't necessarily spread all that far apart from one another, but more importantly, to get this one in, and for you all and the other drivers who have already qualified, this being essentially a big warm-up series, to build form going into April, how important do you feel like this is as a first step to reaching that sort of peak performance level when you get to April, when it really does matter?
Well, you can't beat a win in the bag for confidence. The first time we've been able to get all the club drivers together for a while to see where everyone stands. So it was a nice win on a track that I like, though. So we'll see how the other ones go. I'm pretty pleased.
There are a lot of people that you need to thank besides the folks at Matrix. So who do you need to send the shout outs to?
Well, apart from the Matrix guys, the organisers of this race and PCA done an absolutely brilliant job of organising these things, and they put up with a lot of chatter and advice from all of us drivers, and really thank them for organising the series. It's brilliant.
Well, Matt, congratulations on your victory this evening. Thanks so much for the time, and we look forward to seeing you a little bit later on next week from Sonoma.
All right, thank you.
Matthew Siddle, P1 in this club class this evening. We now turn our attention to Al Burke and Taylor Burris, who will talk to our runner-up in this club class race.
Here with second place finisher Al Burke. Al, you tried to put on a great battle to catch up with Matt towards the beginning, but just could not catch up towards the end. How was your car, and how difficult was it to catch up with Matt for that race?
It was, he's fast, and I had such a gap to Ed and I'm not qualified for the championship, so because I missed a couple races, so at the beginning of our zone, so I thought, you know what, second's pretty good, and trying to push to him, something bad could have happened, so I'm pretty happy where I finished, actually.
Well, as we look ahead for the rest of the season, we have Sonoma coming up. Your thoughts on that race track, as well as what to expect for you the rest of the season?
Yeah, Sonoma's tough because it's very narrow. It's tough to pass there. So it'll be a very interesting race. There's usually, unfortunately, a few accidents there. And I love the last two tracks we're at. Road America is a big favorite of mine. I club race, and that's one of my favorite tracks. And so is Sebring. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the rest of the series.
Well, Al, before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to say thank you to?
Actually, just everybody at PCA that runs this. I mean, our zone guys, James, Anchor, all the guys up top that run this. This is, I sent James a note earlier this week, and what I said to him was, this is the same quality you get with any PCA stuff. It's just top notch. It's really done well. They do an amazing job, and I just like to say thank you because this is a lot of fun.
Well, we appreciate you. Go and enjoy this celebration of a podium finish. That is Al Burke, your PCA Club P2 finisher.
P3 this evening, Ed Eisenring out of the Pacific Northwest region comes to us from Washington State. He is with our Rachel Whiteford.
Yes, certainly is. Thank you very much, James. Ed, a quiet race for you today, actually. It was not a lot going on in third place, but till right at the end when McKinney caught up to you. How was the race going for you?
Yeah, it was a really close, Rachel, and I'm so excited to represent the Pacific Northwest and the Wild West region in the series. It was a few laps, really tough battle with Michael, but I was able to stay ahead of him. So a lot of practice and sweat and tears sometimes helps here.
Certainly does. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you sound originally Dutch, and your name seems to remind me of that. Is it interesting we're representing the Pacific Northwest region?
You're right on. Yeah, I grew up in Holland and moved here in Seattle about 15 years ago already. So that's where the crazy accent comes from. But yeah, the Dutch in the blood, and a big fan of Max Verstappen in Formula 1, of course. And interesting to see what he's going to do this season.
Well, certainly a fantastic drive worthy of Max. Thank you very much for joining us, Ed.
Thank you, Rachel.
Ed Eisenring, P3 wraps up coverage of the club class at PCA Sim Racing for this evening. And one more time, thanks to Michelin for their support of the PCA club class in this Zone Group Challenge for PCA Sim Racing presented by Hagerty. For those of you on YouTube, you know the drill at this point. Hit the blue button. Go to the Pro class. It's our final class of the night. One more big race to knock out, featuring the best of the best in PCA Sim Racing as they kick off their 2021 campaign on the broadcast. We'll be back in just a few moments with our final race of the evening from Watkins, Glen.